Hello students, welcome to this video, and with this video we begin our discussion of the play The Duchess of Malfi, which is a revenge tragedy, which is a tragedy written by John Webster. So the name of the play is The Duchess of Malfi and the playwright is John Webster. And this we are discussing as part of British Literature 1. The name of the paper is British Literature 1. Okay, and the subject code is 105 C2A. Let me just write the subject code here so that you are not confused. Subject code is 105 C2A. So when you get your question papers, you'll have to look at whether you're writing this question code or not. Okay, so this is the subject code, and this subject code will appear in the question paper also. Okay, now let us begin. So the Duchess of Malfi takes place in 15th century Italy. Okay, so it takes place in Italy, and let us get straight into the play. Okay, into the action. So we meet two people. All right, we meet two people, and these people are called Antonio and Delio. Okay, so these two people meet and they are friends. Okay, they are friends, and Delio asks Antonio about his trip to the country France. Okay, so he's welcoming him back to Italy. But let me introduce Antonio properly. His entire name, his complete name is Antonio Bologna. Bologna. Okay, Antonio Antonio Bologna. Bologna. Okay, so that is his complete name. And Delio welcomes Antonio to Italy and says, he asks, how was your trip to the French court? Okay, so remember, Antonio is serving the Duchess of Malfi as a steward. Okay, so he is the steward in the Duchess of Malfi's palace. Okay, and so a steward is like a personal assistant. That is, as of now, if you want to understand, a steward is like a personal assistant. He will take care of everything, the finance, etc., etc. We'll talk about this. You'll get to know his functions later. Okay, so don't worry about that. Now Delio is asking Antonio a question. How was your trip to the French court? How is the French court? Okay, that is, how is the French king conducting his court? And these are the points that Antonio discusses with Delio. So the play opens with two people entering the stage, Antonio and Delio, and they are friends. And Delio asks Antonio a question. How is the French court? You have been to the French court, so how is it? Okay, so this is how the play begins. And so for this question, there is a very long, there's a long reply that Antonio gives Delio, but I'm just summarizing it. And this is what he says. The French king, he says the French king, he appreciates the French king. He praises the French king. He appreciates what the French king has done. And mainly on these three things. Point number one, what the French king has done is he has removed all sycophants. Okay, he is removed flattering sycophants. What do you mean by flattering? A person who keeps on talking about, very small things, who keeps on flattering you, who keeps on praising you. And that praise that person gives you, that person, the way in which he praises you, will be for very ordinary things. That is called as flattery. Praising a person where, there is no scope for praise. That's called flattery. So he has removed all flattering sycophants. Okay, now what do you mean by a sycophant? Okay, let's look at who a sycophant is. All right, people. So this is what he says. Sycophants. This is the spelling. Sycophants. SYCO. Okay, that is, what do we mean by this? A person who flatters will keep on praising you, and a sycophant is someone who will not accept or who will behave in such a way that he expects some sort of for example, in this case, a flattering sycophant will keep on praising the French king. Okay, so what he will do is, aha, super, sir, this is what is needed. And then, that person will keep on saying things which are actually false. So removing flattering sycophants will improve the court, the atmosphere of the court. And not only that, when someone gives you unnecessary importance, when someone gives you unnecessary praise. This is not going to help in ruling. This will not help in governance. This will not help in becoming a better king. So he has removed all flattering sycophant. So sycophant is someone, a flatterer is someone who keeps on praising you. The sycophant is someone who acts in such a manner that he wants some advantage from you. Okay, in this case, such people have been removed from the French court. The second type of people that the French king has removed from the French court is, the second point is dissolute and infamous persons. Okay, that is, they'll just keep on hanging. They'll just keep on hanging in the court, and then getting some favor from the French king, from the king. So he has removed these people. So removed flattering sycophants, removed dissolute and infamous persons. And what he has done a very good thing. The third point is he has created a council. He has created a council. Okay, council is a group of people. Okay, council which informs the king. The council informs the king about the ground reality. Informs the French king of the ground reality. So they give you, for example, if there is a policy that the French king has decided upon, let us assume that there is a law. This council will inform the French king about how effective that law is. Okay, so this is what the French king has done. And Antonio Bologna, the steward of the Duchess of Malfi, the steward of the Duchess, appreciates this a lot. Okay. Okay, now just one thing I have to explain here. I think this will be make things easier for you. Who is a dissolute person? A dissolute person who is one who indulges in all sorts of bad habits, who indulges in drinking, who indulges in all kinds of vices. Okay, a person who has got bad habits and who doesn't pay attention in court. Okay, who doesn't do anything good for the French king. Now, if you notice, these two, 1 and 2, are negative things that he has removed, and this is a very positive thing that he has done. Who? The French king has done a very positive thing by including this council, creating this council which informs the king of the ground reality. All right, so this is what this is how the play begins. Now let us see what happens further. All right. Okay, students. So now we will let us, we are going to meet a very interesting character. Let me introduce that character to you. So we are looking at the Duchess of Malfi, Act 1. The play begins with Antonio and Delio meeting each other. Delio welcomes Antonio to Italy, and we are in Italy. Of course, we are in Italy. Okay, and they discuss about the French king, and Antonio gives the information about the French king. If this is clear, let's proceed further. There is a very interesting character who enters right now, and his name is, let me introduce this character to you. Very important character, Bosola. Bosola. Now, who is Bosola? Let us look at this person, and I'm going to show something which is very interesting. See, when you look at the play, we are following this edition. Okay, if you look at the play, Bosola, I hope you're able to see. Yeah, he is the dramatis personae. When you get to use, when you get to read the characters, Bosola is the first person introduced, gentleman of the horse. Actually, that is not the convention. The convention is not to introduce Bosola, the gentleman of the horse, as the first character in the play. Actually, the character you have to introduce, the characters should be introduced in the order of gender, rank, and status. So characters are usually introduced, the characters in a play are usually written in order of gender, rank, and status. They'll follow that. Okay. For example, it would have been more appropriate to introduce the Duchess first, then Ferdinand, and because by rank they are the highest. Okay, gender, rank, and status. But look at Bosola. I'm not introducing him as a gentleman of the horse because he's going to get that position right now. Look at it. Look at the importance of this character. This person has been kept as has been listed as the first person in the dramatis personae, in the characters. Okay. After that, the Duke of Calabria is introduced. After that, Cardinal is introduced. So according to status, they are introduced. But why should Bosola be introduced first? because Bosola is a very important person in this play. He is so important that the playwright has given him as the first. Just it's a small thing that I wanted to discover. Tell you, point out to you. So Bosola enters, and he says something which is very, very interesting. Okay, so Bosola enters along with actually he doesn't enter alone, he enters along with the cardinal. Okay, and he reminds the cardinal of the service that he has done to him. Now, what does this, he reminds the cardinal, okay? He reminds the cardinal of the service that he has done. Now, remember, I'm writing the service, okay, which means dirty work. Okay, by service, we mean dirty work here. And what do we mean by dirty work? All sorts of dirty work, murder, doing some sort of robbery, going and spying on someone. Okay, that's what we mean by dirty work. Under dirty work, everything will come. Spying will come, murder will come. I don't want to write all that here because, okay, you will anyway get to know about this person. Okay, so he enters and as for this entire conversation is being witnessed by, now of course they don't overhear it, but Antonio and Delio are still there. So I would like to remind you about that. Okay, so when Bosola enters, immediately Antonio and Delio say, oh, well, this person is doing something. I think he's aiming at something. He wants to, do something bad, maybe. Okay, that is what, Antonio says about Bosola. And then, of course, there is a conversation that goes on between Bosola and the cardinal, where he reminds him of the service that he has done, the dirty work he has done. And remember, see, the cardinal has used, it is very clear that the cardinal has used his services. Okay, has given tasks to Bosola. But remember, nobody who gives the task likes to be reminded of the task. So the cardinal is angry and he is irritated that Bosola is reminding him of this. He also reminds him of, Bosola also reminds the cardinal of one thing, that because of the work that he has done, he had to spend time in the galleys. Okay. Now, what do we mean by the galley? Now, let us be very clear. This galleys was actually a punishment given in 15th century Europe to prisoners, okay, where they had to, this was given to prisoners, this was given as a punishment to people, where they had to row ships, okay, where they had to row these ships. They'll be rowers, okay, they'll be using oars and they'll be rowing the ship. But the conditions were very, very bad. It's worse than a prison because the conditions are very, very bad. Okay, the conditions are terrible. Okay, so he's saying that he was he did not have a proper dress to wear in the galley, and because the conditions are very bad, because it's a punishment. Let us be very clear. So let us not pity such people. But anyway, now the punishments have become very moderate, and the prison conditions are also okay. But anyway, in those days when punishment was given, the conditions they were very, very bad. And this is what he tells him. Look, I have been to the galleys. Bosola tells him that, look, I have been to the galleys because of the work that you gave. And okay, now okay, what do you say? This is his question. The cardinal is not happy. Okay, the cardinal is not happy on listening to this. Okay, so he wants to avoid Bosola making such false claims. According to the cardinal, this would be a false claim. Okay, so let us proceed further. So we have got introduced to four characters. Initially, two characters, Antonio and Delio. Another two characters, Bosola and the cardinal. The cardinal is, let me tell you who he is. He is the Duchess's brother, one of the Duchess's brothers. Okay, brother to the Duchess. Okay, now you will be, and then of course we'll be introduced to Duke Ferdinand, which we'll see in a few minutes. Okay, students, let's proceed further. So the cardinal is not happy, and what happens is he leaves because he doesn't want to continue talking to Bosola. Okay, so he feels that Bosola is making a false claim, and before leaving, the cardinal, remember, the cardinal is a position in the church, okay, in the Roman Catholic Church, and the point is that he does not want Bosola making false claims or talking about the tasks that he has given him. So before leaving, he says, "Why don't you, attempt being honest? Why don't you try to be honest?" And these are his words. He says, would you could become honest, would you could become honest. That's the, those are the words that he says. Just let me just show you that. Okay, in this edition, page number 9, would you could become honest, and Bosola replies, I would be very happy. So when the cardinal says, asks Bosola to be honest, Bosola replies, I if you know the way to honesty, if you know that place, I would be very, very happy. That's what he says. He says, please show me the way to honesty. Okay. And he says, but when he says this, by this time, Bosola begins speaking, the cardinal has left. Okay. He says, show me the way to honesty. All right. And then, of course, he's angry that he shows his displeasure, so he says, show me the way to honesty, the path to honesty. Okay, and he's not happy that that the cardinal has left, not listening to him. Actually, he has cut him when he's speaking. He has just, he's not listened, and he's not given him any hearing, and he's just left. So that's because the cardinal is who he is. He doesn't want him to Bosola to make a false claim. And obviously, in status and rank, he's occupying a much higher position than Bosola. Bosola is a prisoner. He's a criminal, and he has just come back from he has served some time in the galleys, and we saw that. All right. So the Bosola then says, makes a comment about the cardinal, and he says that the cardinal can make even the devil worse. Okay, this is Bosola's comment. The cardinal can make even the devil worse. So that is how cunning and crooked the cardinal is. Okay, so even the devil was. And let's not forget that Antonio and Delio have been witness to this, are witness to this. Okay, so when Bosola asks, not Bosola, sorry, Antonio asks Bosola, what he asks Bosola, about what has happened. And Bosola, actually, this is a very famous, these are very famous lines, which will surely come as annotation. Okay, so just concentrate on this part, and you will be able to answer the annotation very well. That is, these lines will come, and then you'll have to fix the context. All right. So Antonio asks Bosola, what is wrong? I mean, did something happen between you two? I mean, you seem to be a bit angry. That is his question. And immediately Bosola, says those famous lines in Act 1, Scene 1. In fact, he says, actually, a comparison, or he speaks both about Duke Ferdinand and about the cardinal. Okay, let's not forget Duke Ferdinand and the cardinal both are brothers of the Duchess. Okay, and he compares them. These are very famous lines, and he says, I call them famous because they come in the annotation. Okay, so he calls them, these brothers are like plum trees that grow crooked over standing pools. Okay, that is, a tree will usually be, he compares them to plum trees. I'll give a detailed explanation of this in the notes. Okay, so don't worry. But the essential part is that he says that, he compares them to plum trees, and the metaphor is that these people are not, in spite of being trees, they are of no use. They are the fruit that comes from these trees. Okay, the fruit that comes from these trees are not of much use to anyone except crows, pies, and caterpillars. Then he says something about a soldier, which is wonderful. He says, look, a soldier, so this is the this of course lines 49 to 60. Okay, these are the lines in Act 1, Scene 1, in which the comparison is made. Okay, and so let us proceed further. And then Bosola says something about,
what a soldier does. I mean, he compares himself with a soldier, and he says that, look, a soldier is someone who gets injured. If he gets injured, he becomes a cripple for life. He becomes affected for life. What do you mean by a cripple? A cripple is a person who cannot lead a normal life. That is, if you look, I mean, so I'm sorry to say this, but a person who loses a hand or a leg or some limb, okay, will remain a cripple for life. And look at how he's treated. He's treated, he's made to lie in a hospital, okay, and be there, without much of a. And what happens to such injured soldiers? They lie in a hospital. Now then he says, he compares such a situation to the court. Okay, by court we mean the court of the duke. Okay, so he says, and let me just read out those lines. He says, there are several for hawks, and then he says, for I to hang in a fair pair of slings, take his lateral swing. Okay, I am just reading this out. Okay, if you're not able to follow the lines, just follow my words. Okay, because they may not be honorable part of it's not very clear here, because the font is not that big. That's okay. Upon a honorable pair of crutches from hospital to hospital. So the person who is injured, a soldier who is injured, has to be, has to lead such a life. And yet, do not use corners for places in the court, or but like beds in the hospital, where this man's head lies at the other man's foot, and so lower and lower. Just as in a court, there is a hierarchy. Okay. Similarly, in a hospital, one person's foot will be there where another person's head will be there. So there won't be much space, and that person is going to lie and be there forever. So he comparing the a hospital to the court. The court of the positions in the court are just like this. Ultimately, the leader benefits, the people do not. The people who are associated with that person, with the duke or with the leader, is not benefited. Okay, or with the king is not benefited. This is his. So what is the comparison here? In spite of being comparing themselves to a tree, there is no use. There is no use being close to these brothers, because ultimately there is only you will lose if you associate yourself with the brothers. And yet Bosola is associating himself with both the duke and the cardinal, more so with the cardinal. Well, anyway, so then Bosola says this and Bosola leaves. Okay, so with this we have just some more lines, and Act 1, Scene 1 will come to an end. So Antonio sympathizes with Bosola's condition. Okay, sympathizes with Bosola's condition, and he says, sympathizes with Bosola's condition, and he says, oh God, I mean, he, poor fellow, he could have been in a much better situation. And okay, so he says, he could be, he could be in a much better position, but then, well, and then Delio tells something which is very important. Actually, we know that Bosola is has been punished in the galleys for 2 years. He gives a different figure. He says, he gives a different number. He says he served for 7 years in the galleys. Okay, and was rescued by a French general. Okay. Well, that is where the Act 1, Scene 1 ends. So this marks the end of Act 1, Scene 1. Of course, Act 1, Scene 2 begins or continues in the same place without any loss of time. So with this, we complete Act 1, Scene 1. Just a quick look at what we have seen in Act 1, Scene 1 before we say goodbye in this video. So first, we know that the Duchess of Malfi is a revenge tragedy in 15th, 16th century Italy, and the play begins. The play begins with two characters, Antonio and Delio, meeting, and Delio asking Antonio. His name is Antonio Bologna. Okay, so this is his name. This is his name. Okay, this is a complete name. He is a steward to the Duchess of Malfi, and he talks about the French court, and he says these are the reforms that the French king has brought in. Okay, and then we meet two characters, Bosola and the Cardinal. Remember, they are major characters, and we'll be meeting them again and again. The Bosola remains the Cardinal that he has done a lot of service to him. He's not happy about listening to this, after listening to this, precisely because by service they mean he means dirty work. Okay, and the Cardinal is not happy, and he says try to be honest, and he leaves. Bosola is angry that the Cardinal has not listened to him completely. And so what he says, this is the comparison that he gives Antonio. This is Bosola describing. Bosola describes the brothers. Okay, he describes the brothers. Duke Ferdinand and the Cardinal compares them to plum trees who are of no use to anyone except themselves. They will be quite okay, but the other, people who are associated with them are not. And then he talks about a soldier. The comparison, he compares himself to a soldier. That's not the point. He talks about the plight of a soldier who gets injured. Okay, the plight of a soldier who gets injured and who has to lead a becoming crippled for life and lie in hospital. One person's foot on another person's head, and nothing much. There's not much of a difference between a hospital and a court where the hierarchy is maintained. Bosola also leaves. Anthony sympathizes with Bosola's condition. Delio gives information about Bosola that he has not just spent 2 years, he has spent 7 years in the galleys, because that is how Bosola is telling the Cardinal when he tells, look, I spent time in the galley, almost 2 years in the galleys, rowing the ship as a punishment. Now, please, you have to do something for me. And this is what he says. Well, Act 1, Scene 1 ends here with Antonio and Delio discussing Bosola's condition and feeling sad for him. So with this, we complete Act 1, Scene 1. In the next video, we'll be looking at Act 1, Scene 2. Please go through this, read this, go through this video before we go on to the next video. Thank you for your patient listen, and goodbye, and see you in the next video.